Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and this is my review of Hellboy. Hellboy marks the latest in the superhero comic book subgenre and marks the third iteration of the character for the big screen after Guillermo del Toro's Duo from the 2000s. But alas, Del Toro's third film was not meant to be, and we are left with the 2019 version of Hellboy. The promotional material was mixed for me. Unfortunately, the positives on the promotional material were all still frames. Kind of like this shirt. I thought this image was sick. Everything to do with this like fire crown, awesome. The posters were great. As long as you didn't read them and just looked at them, because the verbiage, not so great. However, the trailers didn't really ring with me. They seemed real cornball and left much to be desired. The aesthetic, the way Hellboy looked, had me holding out hope. And when it comes to this version of Hellboy, it was a really solid B level movie. Yeah, it's there. So, let's go ahead and talk about the positives first. Well, David Harbour plays Hellboy in this film, and he is far and away the best part of this movie. While not as great as Ron Perlman in the role, because, who can be, honestly? I thought he was really good, and he really delivered in the role. He delivered the action and the kind of like menacing nature, but also the wit and the humor, the quick wit of Hellboy. He did a very good job in the role. I also really enjoyed the slight horror atmosphere that was weaved into the film at points. There is a pretty cool sequence that was really like, where we enter another realm, another dimension, and it worked. And there was a moment here and a moment there, just these fleeting bits of horror that worked for me. I would have liked if this film leaned a lot heavier into the horror direction. It probably would have been more successful, and it's shocking that it didn't, given the director of this film. But alas, I did still enjoy the moments of horror that we did receive. And the look. Hellboy's look is great. So I mentioned the actor, but the visual effects team did a good job on most practical effects. Everything that was done by like makeup and prosthetics, I thought looked good in the film, including Hellboy, who looks great. The rest of those effects we'll talk about in a second, but at least the practical effects came through. And a joke here and there landed. But yeah, it's definitely time to talk about the negatives with Hellboy, because there's a lot more of those, unfortunately. Now, being a fantasy nerd, I actually probably should be more lenient on this film than I am gonna be. It's a little bit shocking how much it just didn't connect with me at all, given the fact that it's like a B-level superhero fantasy movie. But it just doesn't get any of the fantasy elements right, like at all. The creature designs are ugly, and the special effects that are used to bring them to life are terrible. The VFX in this film are so bad that instantly you're brought into B, or maybe even C, level film territory. And then when it feels like the Hellboy version of a Resident Evil sequel, Mila Djokovic and all, we have a problem. We have all of those sweeping, slow-mo action shots, and in particular, what really sends it into that downgrade is the slow-mo, like, blood and kill shots. The amount of gore in this film actually was a bit shocking, how much gore and blood is in the movie, which wouldn't be a problem, but it all looked terrible, first of all. And most of it was trying to be edgy or trying to be cool, just throwing in these headshots and these throat slicings for really no real reason. Like, we go on a rampage through the city where just innocent people are like chopped up and mowed down, and we get really gruesome deaths up and down the city for really no reason. And then when it looks that bad, it just seems like we're now in a video game. This is already an outdated video game, if we're being honest. And I just need to highlight this horrible scene in the middle of the movie involving giants that looked atrocious. And that blame most all comes down to the editing, which is poor across the board in the movie, with really quick edits, some incoherent movement of the camera, but it is at its worst for me personally in that giant scene. Oh. And then we get to the script. This film feels like a bunch of like weird little mini adventures plopped down pretty incoherently through the film. There's not a strong narrative of the movie. There's not a strong journey. There is no arc here. Little reason for Hellboy to fight here. Little reason for Hellboy to fight over here. Hey, flashback. Oh, now let's give Hellboy a reason to have an action set piece here. It never felt like an actual narrative. The script was so disjointed. And each and every time we were introduced to these new random set pieces, it took me out of the film and like was quite jarring. Add to that the fact that like at least 50% of the runtime seemed to be just exposition dumping. I'm going to be honest, I'm usually okay with exposition. Again, I'm a big fantasy nerd, and it's one of the genres I tend to be a little bit easy on, full transparency. But this was just so much, and the exposition wasn't interesting. It didn't really flesh anything out for me. And it was mostly poorly written and not great when it came to the vocals on it either. So the exposition did nothing for me. The visual effects were awful. Oh, and just gross. Like there was a weird psychic thing. Oh god, there was a lot. Every visual effect, from the creatures to the blood and the wounds, everything just looked terrible. And then on top of that, with what I've said so far, it's a tonal mess. It leaps all over the place. It doesn't know if it wants to be a funny film a la Deadpool, where you get the gruesome kills, but it's also really funny and quick-witted, though it's not nearly that funny or quick-witted. And then we swing drastically over here to straight up horror and like torture porn, gore porn. It's like, oh, whoa, where am I? The big factor in that, the music. I thought the score was really bad and the musical choices they make are really bad. Again, that flippin' giant scene comes out of nowhere where the color palette is suddenly super saturated and bright and the music completely takes a turn. And the color palette in this film, a mess. So the filmmakers tried to make a stylized, cool, kind of edgy Hellboy film for 2019, but honestly failed on pretty much all accounts there. The Shining Beacon is definitely David Harbour in the role of Hellboy. I just wish he had a better script to work off of and a better film surrounding the good character work he did. The wonderful design team that helped create such a good character in a film that didn't really deserve him. So overall, if you like B-rated, kind of like fantasy films, if you like that like dark, slow-mo, cheesy action along the lines of Resident Evil or I, Frankenstein, give this a rental. It's definitely not worth theater prices to go seek this one out. And honestly, the visuals might look a little bit better when they're on the small screen. You don't have them like plastered and blown up in front of your face. Otherwise, catch it when it comes on TV because his performance is great and you'll want to see what all the hoopla is about at some point, right? But yeah, it's just not good. And that's pretty sad because I went in with low expectations, but I was really hoping that it would surprise. Choices. So, that is my review of Hellboy. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead, click like down below, and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on our latest videos. Also, join in on the discussion. Are you excited to see Hellboy? And if you have, what are your thoughts? Let me know either in the comment section down below, or you can hit me up on Twitter. I love you all so much for your support. Mwah! Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!